Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. Today we're going to be talking about perimenopause and why and how it hits women so hard and the symptoms to look at and some simple things that you can do to look at to start getting to the root cause of why these symptoms are a problem. Again, this is Dr. J here. If you enjoyed today's video, please give me a thumbs up. Love to see it and love to see your comments down below. All right, so what is perimenopause? So peri just means around, and menopause is essentially a time where you have a cessation of period for 12 months. Typically, your follicular reserve, all your follicles you're born with and your ovaries are gone. You've had no period for 12 months. And that means you're kind of into that menopausal time frame where there's no more cycle. So that follicle, essentially, it produces hormones. So that follicle, you have FSH from the brain. That FSH triggers that follicle to grow. As that follicle grows in the first half of the cycle, it produces estrogen. As the estrogen peaks out, LH comes into the table. That's another pituitary hormone, and that makes more progesterone. And that peak of estrogen followed by that peak in progesterone is where ovulation happens. Those 2 to 3 days you can only get pregnant. And then you have that luteal phase, that last half of the cycle where your progesterone continues to go up and max out around day 20, 21, 22. And then that drop around 27, 28 is where you have your period. That's kind of a healthy cycle. And what happens as those follicles are used up, that FSH comes in and starts to go high, high, high to stimulate those follicles to grow, but there are no follicles there. That FSH, as it continues to go higher, it can actually create flushing and vasodilation. And then, of course, estrogen is very anti-inflammatory. It's neuroprotective, has lots of important benefits, especially progesterone as well, with collagen, elasticity, vaginal tissue health, libido, skin quality, right? So lots of symptoms can start to come into the loop as you go more into menopausal and you have no cycle at all. Now, perimenopausal, that just means you're getting close to that time frame and you're starting to have some of these menopausal symptoms. It may be hot flashes. It may be you skip some months, you don't have a period at all. It could be you start to have random hot flashes throughout the month, random vaginal dryness. Again, how you differentiate perimenopause versus PMS is PMS primarily happens in that week or so before you menstruate, before your period, where perimenopause are going to be these hormonal symptoms that happen throughout the entire month. The mood issues, the hot flashes, the irritability, the collagen, the elasticity stuff could start, the libido. So all these things could start to happen, but it's kind of like your prequel or your sneak preview of menopause. That's what I kind of tell women. But again, I see a lot of women who are younger who still have lots of hormonal issues. And it's like, well, how do you differentiate that? And it's going to be PMS is going to be more that week or so before, where perimenopause is going to be throughout the entire month. Now, the big issues when we look at perimenopause, what are the big things that we can do to stop it? So when our follicular reserve runs out, you're born with all the follicles you have. Now, the health that you do diet-wise, lifestyle-wise plays a role. Toxins play a role where you can preserve those follicles, have them last longer. But one of the big things you can do is make sure we have nutrition coming in, right? Our follicles love CoQ10, magnesium, cysteine, amino acids, fat-soluble vitamins, healthy levels of cholesterol, right? So good nutrients coming in helps the follicles. If we're in a very free radical, high level of oxidative stress standpoint, oxidation is when you're losing electrons. Your body needs lots of antioxidants and nutrients and vitamin A, C, and E, and all these good nutrients. And if we don't get them, then that's going to cause oxidation. Think of oxidation as cutting the apple on the table, leaving it out, and it starts to brown. You could squeeze some lemon juice on it or lime juice, which has vitamin C, and guess what? You would see no browning, right? So it's really important. Nutrition plays a big role with oxidation. Of course, blood sugar fluctuations are a big stress on the hormones. If our blood sugar is going up and down and we're surging insulin and surging cortisol and surging adrenaline, that's going to put stress on our adrenals. And our adrenals end up being the backup generator for our ovaries as we get closer to perimenopause, menopause. So as our follicular reserve starts to drop the amount of hormones, we have maybe our AMH starts to drop down a little bit or go up a little bit, which starts to signal egg quality problems, starts to go out of balance. And then we start to have maybe a little bit of a rise in FSH and a little bit of rise in LH, which is our pituitary screaming down to our ovaries saying, hey, make some hormone. And so as it starts to happen, if we put more stress on our hormones with surging insulin, surging prolactin, depleting our DHEA, surging cortisol, surging adrenaline, that's going to make it harder for our hormones to deal with healthy recovery. Our hormones tend to go in one of two directions. It's a balance, but we're either building up and being anabolic, or we're dealing with stress and inflammation and being catabolic, right? And if our body is too catabolic, too geared towards inflammation, then we're breaking down faster than we build up. We want to be healthy in a state where we're more parasympathetic, where we're building up more than we're breaking down. That's how we age gracefully, is that healthy anabolic to catabolic balance. And so the more stressed and inflamed we are, we switch that ratio where we're more catabolic to anabolic, less building up and more breaking down. We want to fix that. So again, the first thing is even out the blood sugar. Look at a lot of the toxins that are coming in, whether it's plastics, whether it's pesticides, whether it's mold toxins. These are all going to be very stressful on the ovaries, on the eggs, and they're going to be hormone mimickers. So they can really throw off the HPAG axis, hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal, gonadal, gut axis, right? So it can really impact all of those things. So you want to look deeper at that. Of course, gut function plays a role, because if we have gut problems, that's going to impact nutrition, that's going to impact absorption. Women are like 5 times more likely to have an autoimmune condition than a male. Well, guess where 80% of your immune system is? It's in your gut. And so when we look at immune imbalances, autoimmune potential issues, we always look at the gut, because that's going to be a place where a lot of the autoimmunity starts. And so if we can get rid of the dysbiosis, if we can improve hydrochloric acid and enzymes and make sure we're breaking down our nutrients, that's where all the good food that we eat gets broken down and absorbed and assimilated. So if we have constipation, bloating, gas, and we're not getting those nutrients in, we can have the best diet in the world, but it has to go into our body so we can utilize and assimilate it so it works in our system. So hope that makes sense. Out of the gate though, what I typically do with patients is, if we're having any hormonal issues, we're going to definitely test the adrenals out. We're going to look at progesterone, especially in the luteal phase. We're going to look at estrogen. We're going to look at how we're detoxifying estrogen. Lots of women's detoxification pathways are very poor, and therefore we can be more estrogen dominant because of that. Also, dysbiosis in the gut, that means more bad bacteria than good, can throw off estrogen metabolism. And so we can have hormone metabolism issues just because our gut bacteria is off. And so these are all really important things to look at. And so doing testing, we'll even look at urine. Even some of the Dutch testing can be really helpful, especially if we can look at hormone metabolites. We'll look at organic acids too, because methylation is a big deal. I see a lot of women not methylating well on that 2-methoxy, 2-hydroxy pathway that helps with methylation. We see a lot of that is more depleted, and we have less hormone metabolism happening. And then, of course, there could be thyroid problems too. If you have Hashimoto's and you have low thyroid, that can make perimenopausal issues worse. Our DHEA from our adrenals, if that's very low, that's the precursor that's now going to be replacing the follicular reserve that's no longer there. The hormones from the follicles no longer there. The DHEA replaces that. So we want to look at DHEA. We want to look at all these different hormones and see what we can do and what their next step is. Because if we get to the root cause, we can buffer that hormonal drop, and we can allow, a smooth landing. And we can use herbs as well to kind of help the hormones do their best with a smaller amount. And it also works on the pituitary, helping the pituitary signaling downstream to the receptor site. So there's a lot of good options that we can do. All right, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, if you have any friends or family that could benefit, please refer it their way. Love to see your comments below. And if you want to dive in deeper, you need more support on the hormone side, maybe you're perimenopause, maybe you're menopausal, maybe you're just you have cycle issues, a lot of PMS. We can look at it and dive deep and get to the root of this. We don't have to just throw birth control pills or SSRIs or just symptom reducing medications. We can actually get to the root cause. Those medications may be fine for a short period, but we want to get to the root. I'm not anti-medicine. I'm just pro-root cause. So let's focus on getting to the root cause. And if you want to do that, link down below to reach out. All right, guys, have a phenomenal day. Take care.